Hey guys, welcome to the video. If I sound a bit off today, I've got a bit of the flu, or a cold or something, so don't worry about that. If you watched my last video about inaccessible media versus lost media, you'll know that this video goes hand in hand with it. Because what I'm talking about today is piracy, and is piracy actually piracy? Now, up front, I'm not encouraging piracy. I'm not encouraging you to go and download the latest movies in cinemas. No, that is not what I'm saying. Don't do it. You are doing piracy and you are breaking the law if you do that. But what I want to talk about in particular is when something is considered lost media or very much inaccessible media or thought to be lost. Because not everything is piracy. And I want to go into that with hand in hand with what I said with the lost media versus inaccessible media argument. Now, lost media is lost. You know, that is gone forever. It's something that where we know every known copy thought to exist is being destroyed. Now, there could be copies overseas that might be in a vault somewhere that we don't know about. That's what's happened with stuff like Wake in Fright, why we still have Wake in Fright available to us now. Now, Wake in Fright is an Australian movie with, I forget the main guy in that. I know Chips Rafferty's in it, but I don't know as the sheriff, but I don't know the main guy. I forget his name. But anyways, if you know that movie from Australia, shot in Broken Hill, I believe, or around Broken Hill, playing 2 up, and then it becomes, breaks down. You know that for the longest time that was thought to be lost. We didn't know if any copies still existed. I believe there were some aspects of it in National Film and Sound Archives, but we thought the movie was lost. Until it was found in an overseas vault or something, I believe it was France it was found in, and we were able to restore it. Now, that is something that has been restored. That is an example of something that was thought to be lost was not actually lost. We were able to bring it back. It was not the original negative, but it's a print of it. So meaning with the absence of the original materials available, you can still watch it. Now, this is going to lead into my next example. Star Wars. I know I've mentioned Star Wars on this channel the past couple of weeks, but it's one of the best examples of people refer to this as lost media. But this is still accessible in so many different ways, including VHS, including Laserdiscs, including VCDs or whatever else other medium is out there, including like those vinyl ones, CEDs or whatever they're called. There is a lot of ways to watch Star Wars. I don't know if it's on every single medium, but there is a lot of ways to watch Star Wars. Now, what people refer to as lost media is the original versions. You know, the special editions. It's very much known that Lucas edited or altered the original negative, the original camera negative, to make the special editions. And that is the version that has led into modern versions. But when you start thinking about, hey, that must be lost media because I can't watch the version as it was before 1997. False. Completely false. You can watch it on VHS tape, you can watch it on Laserdisc, you can watch it on Super 8, you can watch it on whatever you think, whatever your preference is. But that is not lost media. Now, this is where it becomes complicated with piracy. Because if you were to download something like Despecialized or 4K77, then people will have the argument of, hey, that is piracy, don't do it, you're breaking the law. I disagree. I think if you download something like Despecialized where it's 1080p, but you own the Blu-rays, for example, you own the Blu-rays, you've given money to the Disney Corporation, you own them, they're yours, what you're doing is you're downloading a copy that you want to watch. But also, seeding is where the problem becomes, because if you download them, don't reseed them, don't do the piracy aspect, that is where it becomes complicated. And I don't endorse that, don't do it if, don't do it. But, if you had these DVD, Blu-ray versions, or even the 4K versions, then you can perhaps download 4K77, and the argument can be made that, hey, I'm not doing this to reshare, I'm doing it because I've paid money to the Disney Corporation, this title does not include the version I want, I am watching the version I want, but I have paid media for the privilege to own a version that I want to watch. And so that's where it becomes complicated. Now, Disney and other corporations like Fox and all that could say, no, that is still piracy. You're still downloading something that's not yours. But this is why so many people who say download Despecialized say, own the 4K copies first. Own the latest official release first, because it protects you against the argument of you're downloading it without ownership. No, you own them. You own the copies. You own DVD. I own a lot of different DVDs. Here I own 4Ks. I own a lot. But This is where it becomes a convoluted mess of sorts, because you're not essentially committing piracy in that act. You're committing preservation at some point, because if these versions are no longer accessible, without fan effort, we wouldn't be hearing right now that Disney is restoring it for the 50th anniversary. I think a lot of that goes hand in hand with what's despecialized and what 4K77 have found. Hey, we found film reels still out there. Hey, people still want access to these movies. We're showing demand. And when Disney puts it out, I'm going to buy those 4Ks if they put them out. I'm going to buy them because I want Star Wars in the original unedited form. I want it as it was seen in cinemas. But this is where a lot of things become convoluted, because yes, there is a big stigma around piracy. What is piracy? I believe piracy is something of you have not paid for the ownership aspect and you have went out there actively and downloaded it. And you might say, oh, but it's on Netflix. You can't do that. Have a Netflix subscription then. Download it for the time you have your Netflix subscription. Don't reseed it, don't reshare it, and then delete it when you cancel your Netflix subscription. You do not own it. You don't own that. That's how you're supposed to do it. But the convoluted mess of piracy is weird. Dragon Ball is one of the big culprits. I'm wearing a Dragon Ball shirt because for the longest time, we thought the original broadcast audio for the Japanese dub of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z was lost. Now, in the past decade or two after the Dragon Boxes, fans started realizing, hey, we've got videotapes from Tokyo Tower that people recorded in Japan back in the day, and it has the original broadcast audio on VHS tape that was thought to be lost. Now, the audio for Dragon Ball is still existent. Let's get that out there right now. But it was housed on optical alongside the film, alongside the images. So what happened with the original recording tapes were they were probably destroyed, recorded over, repurposed, or destroyed outright, thrown out because it took too much space, and housing them beside optical on the film is more in line with how you'd house something like that for long-term storage or whatever. A lot of old school Hollywood movies do that. But that audio on tape is destroyed. That is lost media now. We don't have the different takes that Nasawa did. We don't have the different takes that people did on the Dragon Ball episodes. But we have a broadcast version that is brought back off VHS tapes that is not yet on an official release other than what's in France. I believe France did some with Dragon Ball. I have one of them. I have the first box with the Dragon Ball. The only thing is it doesn't have subtitles, and that annoys me. But other than that, it is accessible to some extent. Some people have repaired it with the original footage, put it on, online. But with Dragon Ball, it's convoluted as well. It's very much like, hey, I can't watch the original Dragon Ball broadcast audio. It's out there online, but is it piracy if you download it? I would say if you own the Dragon boxes, if you own the Blu-rays, if you own DVD versions, if you're downloading it in something like, if you're downloading a version that was coming off the Dragon boxes, for example, and you own the Dragon boxes, then theoretically what you're paying for is an additional audio option for the Dragon boxes, essentially, which you own. You're not necessarily going out there saying, I don't own the Dragon boxes, I'm just going to download it because I can. That's piracy because you don't own a Dragon Ball release. You're actively downloading something that you don't own. But if you're saying, hey, I've got the Dragon boxes, I've got all the Dragon Ball media, and I can't hear the audio option I want, that is inaccessible media, and you're looking for an option to watch that. Now, I'm not encouraging piracy. I'm just saying it's a bit more of a grey area with that because you own it. You've paid money to the corporation. You've paid money to Toei Animation. You've paid money to Funimation. You essentially are just looking for an option that you're happy with watching. Without reseeding it, without any of that piracy talk, you're just looking for an option to watch it the way you want to watch it. And this is where it becomes complicated, because I would refer to that as preservation as well. You're preserving a copy, hopeful that one day the proper rights holders will put it out one day and you'll be able to give money to the original corporation, or you have a copy of it right now that is not cutting it for your means. That is not necessarily piracy. I wouldn't call that piracy. It's not like the Napster days where you were just downloading music with no regard, no ownership, and you're just downloading it for the sake of ownership. Now, some people say Napster actually helped their music careers take off. Some people say, hey, Napster was the best thing that ever happened to me. I gained an audience through other means because people weren't controlling this media. I could put my music onto Napster and people would download it, hear it, and then careers took off from it. But for the big labels, like the big people like Metallica and stuff like that, like Eminem and stuff like that, it was, hey, you're downloading our music and you haven't paid for anything. Yes, that is a problem of piracy. If you owned Eminem, for example, and you said, hey, I want this. Here's another thing. When I saw Little Kim the other week, let's just go with Little Kim. I went and saw Little Kim the other week. And, you know, I've heard Big Mama thing. We all kind of know how the song goes. Yeah, what, you got it going on, what? But we all know about Little Kim. But also, did you know that Big Mama thing has a studio recorded version that was not put out where she actually disses Tupac. She actually talked about the East Coast, West Coast thing a little bit. But the big takeaway from that is that she talks about Tupac at a time when the East Coast, West Coast beef was going on. Now that's available on YouTube. I've listened to the version. It's out there. But that would be considered like, it's pretty much unreleased media. That is an unreleased copy. But also, I have the original, like, you know, you can hear the original studio through stuff like Spotify and stuff like that. But the original recording, or one of the original recordings that were not put out officially, that's on YouTube. You can listen to it. It's not necessarily piracy because you're hearing something that was never officially released. It was essentially vaulted. Yes, if someone doesn't want it out there, okay, but also I think with that in mind, that's more of a preservation thing. Hey, this copy might have been lost to the errors. This copy might have been lost to all time. We don't know. But that's not necessarily piracy. I wouldn't consider that piracy. I'll consider that preservation. And this is where I'm starting to really say, like, hey, piracy isn't piracy necessarily. Like, if you're downloading movies that are in cinemas right now and you haven't went and saw them, or you haven't paid for that release when it comes out on Blu-ray, yes, you're stealing. That is piracy. But if you own every copy of Star Wars and you don't have the version you want, and you're saying, hey, I would actually prefer to watch 4K 77, I better go out and buy every copy just so I can at least say when I download it, or if I download it, that, hey, I'm giving money to the Disney Corporation, I am paying for this, this is a paid service, and I'm just downloading a copy that I feel happy with. I would say that's preservation, or like there's a demand for that, and that is supply and demand. Now, Disney are saying they're restoring it. I've heard rumors about it. I don't know if Disney's officially confirmed it, but I have heard rumors that they're restoring it for 50th of Star Wars. In that case, when they come out on Blu-ray or 4K, I will be buying it. I will be buying it, and I will be saying, yep, they will be my definitive versions. As long as they do it right. They better not cut corners. But, you know, I think a lot of people will be like, you know what? We've got the best versions possible from this coming from Disney. And they're on a 100 gigabyte disc, or hopefully they put it on 100 gigs. Hey, they've restored it from the original negative. This is the best version we're going to have. I think a lot of people would say there's no need for despecialized anymore. There's no need for, you know, 4K 77 anymore. There's no need for these pirated or like unofficial versions, because the official version we got from Disney is what we want. But in the vacuum of not having the version we want, that's where it becomes complicated. But as I said, I'm not encouraging piracy. I'm just saying there is a difference between piracy and preservation and paying for media that you want to consume, but you can't consume the version you want. So you're going out there searching for the alternative. You're looking for an alternative, but you have paid money to the corporation. Disney have been paid, or Fox have been paid, or Sony have been paid, or whoever owns whatever, Toei have been paid. That is where I really want to hang my hat on this one. You can still access it. It's accessible. But I just think we need to start looking at what it actually is. What is lost media? What is piracy? Because not everything's piracy. And I think we can't chalk it up as piracy is everything that you don't own. You're downloading online. You don't own it. But, you know, I own a lot of versions of Star Wars. I own different versions of Star Trek. I own a lot of different versions of everything. Oh, geez, I have a bit of a cold here. But, you know, you own a lot of different versions, is what I'm saying. You went out and paid the money. Shouldn't you be entitled to watch the version you're happy with? And, you know, you've seen now digital streaming releases that don't get put out on physical media. And you see a lot of times where people will say, I want to own this version of the movie. Prey for the longest time was not on physical media. I think there's a lot of movies that are coming out where it's just, hey, we'll put it on streaming. And I think Willow might have been one of those that were just deleted. And you see this a lot. If you watch it on PlayStation games and stuff like that, you know, Concord was deleted. But, you know, there's a lot of times where stuff like that happens. So how do you preserve something? What's the word for it? If you're not actually buying, like if you're buying something and you don't actually own it, then piracy isn't stealing in a lot of ways, I wouldn't say. I would say you're preserving a copy, or you're finding a copy you're happy with after paying money. That's what it hangs on. Have you paid money? Are you an owner of Star Wars. I am an owner of Star Wars. I've got a lot of official releases of Star Wars. I've got it across just about every medium you can imagine. But, you know, there are a lot of different scenarios here of like, how do you chalk this up? How do you essentially look at this? What angle? Disney's always going to look at it as, this is piracy, this is stealing. But if Disney were putting out the official ones, I think a lot of people would say, oh, Disney, we're not going to download 4K77. We're not going to download the specialized. We want your copies. We want Disney's copies. We want the ones that came, this is a Super 8, but I'm just going to do it for sake of it. We want the official, negative. We want the official one restored from the negative, or as close to, we want the high res stuff. We want the stuff that George Lucas actually shot back in the day. We want the versions that are out there. We want the versions that you own in your vault there, but just you can't be bothered restoring. Now, we're hearing about restoration. We're hearing about they're probably going to come out in 2027 for 50 years. Let's hold them to it. Let's say, hey, the moment you put them out, if they're good and they're a true definitive release, I think you kill the specialized. I think you kill 4K77. I mean, there's still going to be people who say, I will stick with my 4K77, thank you. I think 4K77 and the specialized will just say, hey, we've got a new version, let's alter this so it's proper to the version, our audience. But I think a lot of people want it from Disney. I think a lot of us want the official from Disney official. So it doesn't feel like we're committing a crime when we're watching Star Wars, the versions we want. That's where I want to hang it on right here. If you like this video, like, subscribe, drop a comment, and also I will put a couple end screens right here. You can watch a couple of things. I'll put it all as Star Wars because I've talked a lot about Star Wars the past couple of weeks. But also, is piracy piracy? That's the question. Is piracy piracy? Or is it inaccessible media, or is it something you're accessing after paying money that you want access to? The proper version. Let me know. Catch you in the next one. Peace.